Towns for All Ages, which is a joint initiative between South Orange and Maplewood, New Jersey. The two towns share several resources, mostly the school district. It's really one community, very fluid, people go back and forth, but with two separate town halls. So when we started, or when I started in the world before COVID, back when everything was nice and sane, our top priority was to establish communication channels. I had learned in previous experience that the best efforts don't mean anything if people don't know what you're doing. So we needed to find out, how would we know what people want and not just make assumptions? How would they know what we were doing? And how to make sure the communications reach a range of people, since one size does not fit all. And that's a term you probably either have heard a lot or will hear a lot. There is no one thing that will serve all retirees or all senior citizens. In our survey last year, we had about 450 responses to an evaluation survey, and we were trying to narrow down communication, the best way to do it. But people really use a wide range of communication services, so we need to keep that range as wide as we can. Sorry. So this is how we communicate. The three biggest areas and our biggest strategies are the newsletter, the website, and the e-blast. And those three things include the community calendar. So the newsletter we print every other month. We have, basically it's free, it's paid for by ads that are sold by the newsletter printer. And we then mail it to 850 addresses within the two towns. We also drop off hundreds of copies at 4 of the senior apartment buildings. We put them in the libraries. You know, back when things were open, we would have them out at events in every public building. And that gets information out to a lot of people. It can include anything from a calendar of events to writings by other seniors to information from the town. We had a wide range of things that we cover in it. Our website is allows people to find what they want when they want it. And that's something that came through on our survey last year, that people say, just put it on the website and I'll find it when I need it. And what we learned in COVID was it's also good to just keep the information, the links when people want to go back and find something. So it's important to update the website to keep it changing and fresh enough to catch somebody's interest, but also to keep the information that you've put on there before so they can go back for it. Our e-blast list is now about 950 emails in the community. And the community calendar we use to consolidate the town recreation community events all in one place. One of the things that was a kind of complaint was that people don't know what's going on because there is so much going on here by smaller groups. So we pulled it all together in one place. It makes it easier for the seniors and makes it easier for other community groups to get their information out. But what we still need is social media. That's something that we just haven't gone into beyond Facebook, and it's something that more and more people, as the younger seniors join in activities, as people are retiring and they're used to social media, they've had it at work. That's something that we really have to work on and add to our repertoire here. So what goes into our communications? I would say absolutely everything. For us, communicating is a process and it builds a relationship. We benefit from including other groups' information and relaying it to our targeted audience, because then they'll reciprocate. One great example of that is we've built a lot of partnerships with the arts and cultural community. So if there's an outdoor concert or art in the park or a performance, by helping to communicate their plans, their information, how to get tickets, the location, everything, by putting that out there, we're helping them increase their audience, which is something they really liked. And when they see that increase in audience and they see that more older people are attending, the next step is we have a senior tent with chairs ready so people don't have to carry their own chairs, and a place for people to meet up. So one of the things that we've done is really increase participation at the wide range of free community events. We also work with the town and community groups to get out news and information. Right now, the big thing is, of course, it's COVID, but it's also election information. So anything that the towns need to relay, important information, we help share. We know that there are multiple small groups communicating with their target audiences, but seniors are not going to sign up for 25 to 50 different email lists. They're just not going to do it. And by consolidating it all in one place, we make it easy, we make it simple, we increase awareness of our older residents and how important they are, and how much they attend, how much they contribute. And we're always building those partnerships with other groups. Recently, I had a few people reach out to me because everything's broken up under COVID. And they said, you know, a woman at the concert told me that I should reach out to you and get my next performance on your calendar, because that's where a lot of people found out about it. So we're happy to be a service to the whole community for that. One of the really important issues for communicating is we have to know who we're talking to. If you don't have someone's attention, or if they feel it's not for them, they will just stop paying attention right away. So in our survey last year, we learned that word of mouth was the top method of getting information. There was a lot of different sources. We've got a few online news sources. We've got multiple Facebook pages. We've got town websites. We've got town subdivision websites. But the number one method was word of mouth. So if we could just find the one person who has a lot of friends, we'd have everything solved. We also learned that our seniors have a strong interest in arts and culture and community events. And as I said, putting that on the community calendar and e-blasting it to them, putting it on the website, really helps people get engaged. One of the things that came through loud and clear in our survey was people don't identify as a senior. So people don't tend to go to events at the senior center as they would if it was at the community center, or if it was held somewhere else, or was held in a small theater. That meant that we need to do a really good job of finding those other things in the community, because that's what people want. We also learned that 90% have access to computers and emails and can check them at least daily. On the other hand, some don't own a cell phone and they are not online in any way, but the potential is there. And I think that it's gone up a lot under COVID when people were forced to be online more. A lot more are using their computers, emails, tablets. Many have gotten them as gifts from their family to stay connected. So we're seeing that increase the use of technology and computers. So based on our previous efforts, our contact list was strong. So when COVID started, had two important things for us. One, we could share urgent information with the older residents. They knew that we were reliable, they trusted us, they knew how to get a hold of us. We could immediately relay information from the town, from the health department. We could get it out very quickly. And we also had set up an emergency fund in the town, so we could communicate what it was, how to apply, what it was there for. And when people needed help with medical, transportation, food, of course, was a huge issue. They could get in touch with us and we could help them out. And it helped us connect a lot with seniors for the shopping, rides, and all those other issues that were so important early on in COVID. But when we had the chance to breathe, it helped us enhance our social connections more. We let people know about online or virtual events. We had a way for them to reach out, ask questions, get help. They knew how to communicate with us and how to find us. We offered Zoom, and we found out that more than 80% of our seniors have at least attempted something on Zoom, which we thought was very positive. And we offered free programming. We did some art programs, concerts, exercise, and a support group on Zoom so that people had a way to connect. Because, you know, at first we thought this was going to be 2 weeks or a month, and it's gone on, and we needed ways to get people to connect, to fight social isolation. And because of all the work we had done beforehand, we felt like we had a pretty good platform for that. So during COVID, we also used our e-blast list to conduct a survey to see how seniors were doing, how they were feeling, how comfortable they felt about returning to normal. And overall, we found they were less stressed and in better health than we expected. So our immediate concerns were lessened. We knew that most people were doing okay, and we could then focus on people with more severe problems. 80% had tried an online program, and I'm sure that's gone up a little bit because word of mouth is working really well, getting people online. And we learned what they missed most about returning to activities. So while people missed the library, they said they're not confident going back to the library. And that helped the library shape their plans. So instead of opening up an annual festival, it's online. Instead of having people come in and use the computers, they're meeting them at the door with the materials they ordered. So it's helped other departments plan on what to do. And we also are helping them still more and more, going on through Zoom, through dial-ins, any way we can get them connected. We feel that we've had such a great response to technology in our communications that we're making post-COVID plans already. So as we go ahead and we develop new options for communicating, we're never stopping a previous one. I think it's still really important to have that printed newsletter for people. Even people that say they're online all the time, they like ripping out a page and hanging it on the refrigerator. As we go forward and someday things return to normal, we think Zoom and online programs should always be available because some people can't come because of the weather and illness, transportation. Having online options going along with the live presentations or the live activities, we think is really important to going forward and getting people to connect and participate. And we're working on classes for people. We have had 2 classes online on how to use your smartphone. We're doing another one in October. If you're interested in learning about that, it's going to be posted on our website. I think it's October 22nd or 28th. We've also had classes on how to shop, bank, and connect to others online. And we're really helping people instill confidence in technology and their ability to use it. We find that once somebody does it the first time, then they work out the kinks, they can do it. We've even had people leave their room, go down the hall of the apartment building where they live, help another friend get on, go back to theirs. So they're bringing other people right into the Zoom room. Oops. So that is pretty much our pre-COVID communication plan and how it's helped carry us through the last couple of months. So now I'm going to turn this over to Janet.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen with you now. And as I mentioned, I am, whoops, what is that? I am the executive, or I was the executive director of the Volunteer Center of Bergen County for many years. And now I'm coordinator of Age Friendly Englewood. Age Friendly Englewood is a community-wide project, and you can read about our mission here. We started out in 2015 and 16 and started by doing surveys, as many of the other age-friendly communities do. And we set out we put together a coalition of about 120 leaders. I knew a lot of people in Englewood because of my work at the Volunteer Center. I knew the mayor, I knew a couple of council members, I knew many of the nonprofit leaders, and I knew some of the religious leaders. And Englewood has some really, really powerful houses of worship. All denominations. So we assessed needs, we identified gaps, we developed a very worked plan, and then COVID happened. So everything changed completely. Our plan went, I wouldn't say down the drain, but it was on a way, way, way back burner on low flame. So we decided to regroup. But what's in the works for 2021 really was things that were part of the 8 domains of livability, if you're familiar with those from the World Health Organization and AARP's Livable Communities. We were putting together an initiative with pedestrian safety and doing a lot of things with socialization, addressing some health needs in the community. We have a very large low-income population where diabetes is an issue and blood pressure is a way of checking that. We were doing a community garden, intergenerational programs, a doo-wop concert at Bergen Pack, just a number of things that were bringing people out, bringing people together, and really helping to make Englewood a very livable community. And then our plans changed quickly, and we found out that one of the biggest things is a need for information. There was also immediate financial distress. So many of our local mom and pop shops are owned by senior citizens, so they were in financial distress. Food was a big issue, so a lot of food initiatives ramped up very quickly. And there was concern about isolation because people are in their homes and we didn't know if they had access to technology or what. So those first few days, and I wouldn't say weeks, but really just 2 or 3 weeks were really very confusing. And we just tried to figure out anything we could do to help in the immediate need. I will also say that everything that Kathy talked about I agree with. We've done a lot of those things too. So I'm not going to go over a lot of the basic things that Kathy talked about how we amassed our database and all of the things that we had done to help really map out the plan for Englewood to become more age friendly. So those are our plans. The need for information was really the key thing, and we developed a number of tools. Outreach and collaboration were really important. And we did a lot of our communicating through social media that was already in place in the town. There are a couple of really dynamic Facebook pages. One is Englewood Today, the other one is Englewood News. I wouldn't say they're in competition with each other, but they sort of are. Anyway, I sent stuff to them and they posted immediately, and they each have about 3,000 followers. And then we also work closely with the nonprofit network in town. We developed really dynamic communications utilizing technology to provide critical information, hopefully alleviate isolation by getting people aware of what's available and thereby promoting socialization through online technology. The collaboration, there's a screenshot of this weekly meeting that we have. A young woman who is the leader of one of the really very heavily followed churches in town, Metro Community Church. She started this weekly meeting of nonprofit leaders, and we started this probably within the first month, and we still get together every Wednesday at 10:30. And really what it's turned out to be is sort of a support group for each other. It's really wonderful. We identify needs. We talk about all sorts of things, whatever is happening immediately. If there's a new food project coming into town, or if there are people who need technology, the schools, we found out that so many kids immediately when schools went remote didn't have a device or Wi-Fi. So we tried to figure out ways to get them connected. And believe it or not, that's still an issue. Hopefully the school system will get that under control. We talked about mental health needs, about isolation, things that we could do regarding kids. Kids didn't have anything to do or any place to go. So we were trying to make sure that there was information out there about activities that they could do to stay in touch with their friends without going to hang out on the corner. Also, the whole issue of racial equity became very important, and we started working more with some of the local organizations to participate more in issues of racial equity. And we just meet every week and go through whatever is at the top of anybody's list. And we all agree it's probably the most important work-related hour of our week. It's really, really good. One of the big things we did was an e-newsletter. Bergen County is really a media desert. The Bergen Record used to be a really dynamic paper with all kinds of local information. And I heard a groan from somebody, so I think you probably know what I'm talking about. The Bergen Record was bought by Gannett, which is USA Today. So much of the news comes from USA Today, which they may be talking about outstanding volunteers in Nashville, Tennessee or something, when there are really wonderful things going on in Bergen County. So we wanted to focus on what's going on really locally and provide daily information about what's going on right in our community. We got a lot of this from the governor's press conference when he was doing them every day, also from Governor Cuomo's press conferences. And now the press conference from Governor Murphy is about every other day. So we do the newsletter then. We talk about whatever resources are available in the community. We talk about things going on with health, certainly about coronavirus and about testing, about masks, about practices to be involved in, about where you can get information. And then a lot of it is things to do. So people really seem to like this thing. We have a newsletter. Our mailing list is about 2,400 people that we've gotten through the same kinds of things that Kathy had talked about how you build your list over time. We now have had about 100,000 opens of this one. I mean, it could be one person has opened 50 issues, but sometimes people go in every couple of days to check it out. And they click on the links. We do have a lot of links. A lot of it it's organized at the top. The national news is first, as you can see from this. We go from national, and then we go to New Jersey, and then to Bergen County, and then local stuff. And I also include a video or something about something that's happened. The one that you see here is when Carl Reiner passed away. And I just did a video about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and also about Bruce Springsteen's newest release and so forth. Those things always get a lot of clicks. So the audience is really our older adults that we've gathered one way or another through our operations over the past 3 years. Certainly elected officials, nonprofits, and we have some really robust civic organizations, Rotary and the Garden Club and some other things like that. City agencies, certainly we want them to know because nobody has access to news. So they really like this thing. The houses of worship really like it. And we have about 600 individuals that have signed up to get this newsletter. We also sent a postcard to every residence in town. There are 11,000 households with about 28,000 people. And we used something that the post office has called Every Door Direct to get this out to everybody. Our printer that we used, who was in town, knew how to bundle the mail exactly so it would be post office specifications. So we got this information to every household in town. Hopefully it would give people numbers to call if they had information, places to get online to get information, and also to sign up if they wanted to get a call from the local fire department or from a group of people that we had who were calling. The cost was $3,000, and fortunately I had a grant from the Henry Marilyn Taub Foundation. Hello, Stephen Taub, if you're still on the call. So we had money to do this, but I think it was money well spent because we got the information out there, and it was put out by Age Friendly Inglewood and the City of Inglewood. So it had some credibility. We also found with regard to isolation, you don't know who you don't know, but we do know that Inglewood is a very caring community, has very robust neighborhoods where people really look after each other. And the houses of worship are the same. They're really in touch with their members. I know Community Baptist Church has, I think, 3,000 members, and Ahavath Torah, which is a large Orthodox congregation, also has thousands of members. And they're also very strong school communities. If the parents send their kid, if the kids go to the public school, the parents are involved, and so they very much know about that. And there are also abundant resources online for socialization, but as Kathy said, to access all of those, you'd have to go to umpteen thousand different websites to find out where everything is. So we try to get as much of that information as we can into the newsletter so people can find one source to get all of this that's current, and we do update it every day. And then outreach services. We have the Good Morning Inglewood, which was where the fire department will call residents every day if they sign up for that service. They said they designed it that way because people wouldn't sign up for the police department, but with the fire department, they will call, and the fire department will not only call, they'll send somebody out to the home if the resident doesn't respond. We also enlisted COVID callers, which was a posse of about 20 people who said they would call people who were isolated, but we only had a couple of people, well, actually more than that. We had about 15 older adults that were identified by one of the nonprofits that's their business, Bergen Family Center. They have the county care manager contract, so they reach out to seniors all over Bergen County, and they had about 400 people that they were calling regularly and asking those people if they wanted a call from a friendly volunteer, and only about 15 of those did. But again, we don't know who we don't know, and that's a real problem. It always is to find out who you don't know. We did find out that through technology, we needed to, well, I'll go back to this. We did find out that through technology, we had people who wanted to learn more about using their iPad or their iPhone. And so we matched people also with volunteers who signed up, and with people who needed help, we could match them so they could figure out on themselves using a telephone, or maybe even getting to use Zoom so they could get connected and learn how to use their devices. And now the JCC on the Palisades has an iPad. It's a free rental program where they'll actually deliver an iPad to someone's home, and they will have somebody who will teach them how to use it. And there's no charge for this at all. They just need to know who needs an iPad and then deliver one to them. So I think that's a great program. Then our continuity of effort, we know is going to be strengthened by communications as we gradually reinstate some programs or modify ones that we have. For one thing, because at the very beginning, there was much less traffic, the pedestrian safety initiatives that we were advocating for are actually taking place. The DPW and the city engineer have been improving some of the dangerous crosswalks in town. And so that's happened. The concert series at the library, they're doing it now outdoors until the weather changes for the bad. So that's a good thing. The garden, we were doing a community garden at the low-income senior building, and that was on hold because they didn't want residents to gather even outside because it would be in too close proximity. But the landscape designer who was doing that for us also had been involved with the Today Show when Michelle Obama introduced her garden at the White House. And he had some large barrel planters and a staff of people, and so he sent the planters over with his staff to plant them around the low-income senior building. So it really makes it look beautiful. It has flowers all over the place. So it's really a nice thing that came out of this initiative. We also are working with Bergen Family Center and the Community Chest to develop a racial justice series. Bergen Family Center did one for teenagers that was really, really good, and it's certainly applicable to adults. So we're working out the details of that. We are going to do a workshop that will be open to people in the community about undoing racism and anti-racism and so forth. And we think in Englewood, that's particularly appropriate. We're doing a lot to help promote flu shots that are available because we know how important that is. And also the fellow who runs the senior center, the Southeast Senior Center in town, Scott Radine, is also a DJ, which he has been a DJ for numerous bar mitzvahs, weddings, whatever. And he's held some online Zoom dance parties, which have been a lot of fun. So the main thing is that we do get, 30, 50 people who sign up for these dance parties, which is great. And the Senior Center, Southeast Senior Center, also has just a whole range of online programs, as does the JCC, as does the YW. So it's just a matter of making those things available so people know where they can get that information and sign up on their own. And we're, nothing is a done deal. We're always changing and growing and adapting, we hope. So that's my spiel, and I'm sticking to it. I'll go back to where am I going now?
Thank you both, Kathy and Janet, for sharing. Janet, I'm not cutting you off, am I?
No,
Okay. Great. As you can see, I've put some of the highlights from what our speakers have shared with us. If anyone has any questions, please put it in the chat box, and I'm happy to bring it up if you have anything specific to your community or any of the methodologies that they've spoken about. I think it's very interesting to break it down and think about the who, how, and what of communication. And I think one of the most important things we've seen in the pandemic, both of them address this, is the digital divide that we have amongst older adults. When we look at older adults, it's a large spectrum of an age range and differing preferences and abilities when it comes to utilizing technology.
Right. Margaret, I have an older woman, she's in her 90s, who I've known for years, but she happens to live in Englewood, so she's been very involved in this project. And she said just recently, well, I have a smartphone, but it's smarter than I am. So that speaks exactly to what's the issue with a lot of the older people.
Exactly, and a lot of them, it's a large learning curve, and they're afraid of breaking the technology, or, it just feels beyond what they are willing to take on right now. But we've seen the push with the pandemic of, encouragement from family, from community members, from friends, so they can stay connected, and more importantly, get verified information on how to stay safe right now. One of the questions I wanted to pose to both of you, it was addressed in Kathy's plan for the future, and I appreciate knowing that there is a plan for the after. That gives us all a little bit of hope. But when you look at in identifying one, and Janet, you addressed this too, how do we know who doesn't have technology and who does, and how they're using it, and how, when we're maintaining social distancing to keep our older adults safe, are you able to kind of get some of them online, not only to learn, help them learn and support them, but getting the devices to them along with the cost and the hotspots or internet connection that are necessary?
Yeah.
That's one of the really hard things. We actually are considering doing a device drive for people who have old iPads. And we're in the same town as Seton Hall. A class reached out to us, and as their service project, they asked what they could do. I said, you can figure out how to teach seniors technology.
That's great.
2 of the senior apartment buildings had a grant to put in Wi-Fi and tablets, so that's going to be a help. I think they put in right as COVID started, and it was a quick turnaround. But it is still very difficult, and we can't go to the libraries right now. If I could roll back the clock to February, I would have pushed how to do things online, how to learn online, and not, some library classes were how to use Word, how to use Excel. What we need to know is how to shop online, how to call an Uber, how to download an app. So we are having, it's October 28th. It will be on my website calendar if you want to join with a great presenter on how to use your smartphone better. We did find that a lot of people do have smartphones. Their kids give it to them, and they only use it as a phone. So finding out what people have and then how to maximize how to use it is good. And then word of mouth among the seniors goes bit by bit. Someone tells their neighbor or friend, I did a Zoom exercise class, I did this, whether it's, you know, they go to their next door neighbor, they go to somebody in church, but bit by bit, it's spreading by that.
Yeah, I agree. I know the library in Inglewood also they got a grant for something that they're using it for this now, and that's to buy Wi-Fi hotspots and devices for people so they can get connected. And we also have a little money in our grant that we might be able to put towards that. Also, Bergen Family Center has a big group of teens who they used to meet in the high school. Ronnie, I think, used to run that program at the Zone at Dwight Morrow High School. But we want some of those kids to we were planning to do this, but now we're going to be doing it virtually, is to get the kids to teach older adults how to use their technology. And again, we're using the whole neighborhood and house of worship network to find out who isn't connected, who's out there who we don't know about yet. And that's a constant challenge. We just don't know who we don't know.
Right, right. Well, I think not only getting them to use the technology they may have in hand, but the device drive is an excellent way to spearhead the solution to those that can afford or don't know how to go about shopping for a device.
I know that the social worker at the low-income senior building said a lot of the people there like their flip phones. They don't want to change. They like their flip phones because, and I agree, it has the buttons you can actually push, like the BlackBerry had too. I love those. But they don't want a so-called smartphone. They like their flip phone. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, the fact that they might be able to talk with their grandchildren online or whatever doesn't seem to be that huge of an incentive if they have their phone. But again, the people that we've reached out to who we think are isolated say they're not isolated. They're in touch, however they're in touch, whether it's by telephone or maybe, you know, just across the backyard fence or whatever, but they're not isolated.
Mm-hmm. And how to maintain those connections so it continues as such as a baseline. One thing I wanted to mention before moving on to some of the questions that are being posed, one of the solutions that has been developed in our agency at Jewish Family Service for Central New Jersey, where they've piloted through a conglomeration of grants and some philanthropic endeavors and support a virtual senior center. We've developed a program where we're able to connect our clients using a device called Univer, and it attaches to any TV with an HDMI, and it creates access to programming, Zooms, as well as WhatsApp to virtually talk with family, friends, or doctors. I want to just make sure I address some of the questions that are coming up in the chat box. Thank you, Joan, for posing this great question. How do we do a better job of reaching more isolated sub-communities, such as ethnic groups that self-isolate, non-English speaking, dementia, I'd add to that caregivers, as well as our low-income residents?
I know in Englewood, part of the neighborhood is the low-income neighborhoods where they are very supportive of each other. With regard to the Hispanic population, it's a growing part of the Inglewood population. And before the pandemic, we had done a couple of focus groups with Hispanics. And they said the primary way they get information and stay connected is through word of mouth. They are friends and they get together, or they talk with friends. And whatever we have found in our current outreach is that they're not isolated, that they feel very connected through the networks that they already have, even though it's not through the kind of communications that we put out. And we try to do links to Spanish communications and Spanish organizations as well. But from what we found is that the Hispanic community very much supports each other.
And this is a question, and I think Janet put it so well when you say we don't know what we don't know. So we do know that we have a strong church community. We have more than 13, 14 churches in our communities. And I've reached out to them, we give them information. And for the most part, they say, we're good. You know, we're good. They don't need help. They are working with their own congregation. What was interesting under COVID, the people that reached out for assistance because of COVID and to use the COVID emergency fund were not people that I had heard of before. I had never had their phone number, email, address. They weren't getting my newsletters. So I still am not clear on some of them, how they found me. Some of it was a neighbor or word of mouth or friend, which, you know, we know that's the number one source of information. But we learned that there are still people out there. The biggest concern I had for isolation were caregivers, because if they had a partner, spouse at home that they were taking care of, they didn't even want to go out shopping like in the early morning senior shopping hours for fear of bringing the disease back in. So they were calling for help for volunteer shoppers and also looking for things to do. Fortunately, we have access to a social worker who could help. Some of them we were able to connect online, but just think of if you already have the responsibility and the stress of caring for someone, and then to be 24/7 with no one able to come in. For a while, home health workers weren't allowed in, not being able to go out and having no relief. That was very difficult for several people. And those are the ones that we heard the most from, and we're worried about isolation. But connecting them to the library and the online exercise classes we set up seemed to give them a nice break until they were able to have care come back into the home.
There was also a concern about abuse, whether it was elder abuse or child abuse or domestic violence, all of that. I mean, because people are so stuck together that we were very concerned about that. So we tried to get a lot of information out there about hotlines that are available and crisis communications that people could tap into if they needed to have.
Well, I know we've gone past our allotted time today. I don't want to go too far past and lose some of you who may need to go. Is there any other questions or anything else anyone would like to share before we leave our session today?
I think for me, the most important thing to remember is one size does not fit all. So just keep trying and see what works.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think speaking of senior centers in our earlier session made me think about those that are engaged with senior centers are already connected, and that's usually the go-to place for our communication methods as far as partnerships. But you know, the challenges that we've all kind of spoken about is meeting those who are not connected, and I think pointing out that a lot of them are self-isolating, especially in larger communities like such as the one that I work in Elizabeth. There's many diverse cultural subgroups, as well as those who are by their housing or by their socioeconomic status. It kind of creates different enclaves, and you know, meeting those needs of the separate subgroups as well as the broad community is one of the biggest challenges that are hard to meet.
Right.
Then I also, on a different point, wanted to say that as far as spearheading the digital divide and supporting our older adults in learning to use technology and becoming comfortable with it, I love that there's the intergenerational solution. It not only creates opportunities to bring generations together, but inclusion and the two-way help that can be provided by including different groups and creating new partnerships out of that as well.
Right.
And I see, I'm going to include, someone's asking for contact information. If you both don't mind the speakers putting that in there.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
And you know, with inclusion comes the importance of the partnerships as well, because not only does that help us with communication and reaching out and identifying the older adults in our community that we can engage and help maintain connected, but it's also a way to get them engaged, help them learn to volunteer, help them to feel that there's a mechanism to voice their preferences, their needs, and have that support to push that forward. So it's very important. And as we go forward into this election season, it's important that all of us that hold this importance in our hearts, both personally and professionally, that we bring that to the table as well in how we vote. I encourage you all to vote this season and be in touch with your elected officials and make sure that they hold this as a priority for the entire community, so we can make it not only a good place to grow up, but also a good place to grow old.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. I'm going to
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
A few minutes if anyone has any questions, and just to make sure anyone captures anything before they leave the meeting. But thank you all. Hope to see you next week again on October 6th.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Janet, I really love how you guys did the postcard.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I'd never even heard of that. Somebody on one of these Wednesday calls mentioned it, and so we looked into it, and it really worked out well.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we did have money to do it, so it worked out.
So did you get people to like sign up for your mailing list and emails from it, or could you
I didn't
tell?
get that much of a response to it, and the fire department got a few people who signed up with them. But at least, you know, we got the information into people's homes. Whether
Yeah.
they thought of it as junk mail and threw it away, we have no way of knowing. But I'm always getting people who want to sign up and get the newsletter. So
Yeah.
so some of it may have been from that.
I'm wondering if we could do that with other nonprofits and community groups to like share, here's who you can get information from, like, if we split it that way.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I'm so glad you said like we don't know what we don't know, because the question about that is from someone on one of my committees. I thought, why are you listening to me? Go listen to someone else and you'll learn something new. But we don't know. And you know, it's something we all have to talk about more. It comes a point where if you didn't realize that the town no longer sends you their quarterly leaflet and the paper isn't coming and you're not getting this, and you never reached out and said, why am I not getting that, and found there's another way, you're choosing to
I
isolate.
get a lot of people who just said, I heard about your newsletter, put me on your list. And I've gotten probably 100 of those.
Yeah, I
And
get a
funny,
lot of
one of
it.
them was the former publisher of the Bergen Record. Said, I hear you're doing a really
Yeah.
nice newsletter. And so we put him on the list.
But some people, they don't, I mean, I think that the social isolation is, for some people, it's a choice. And
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you have to respect that. Some
right, and I
people
get it.
don't want anybody messing with them.
And then every few months we get somebody new on one of the committees that's like, well, if we just have the best presenter or the best party that nobody can turn down, then they'll come out. Like, no, if they've been disconnected from the community for years, they're not waiting
They were
for
shy
that
their
one
whole life.
party.
Well, they were shy their whole life. They're not going
Yeah.
to all of a sudden not be shy when they're 80, you know? So
Exactly,
we have to understand that.
Right.
exactly.
You know, from a social worker's perspective, you know, when you're looking at client-directed practices, you know, you have to meet the client where they're at. You can't force them to be an outgoing, extroverted person all of a sudden if they're more quiet. That's just the personality and their preference. And,
Yeah.
you know, how do we address their needs while maintaining that mindset of their preferences and respect?
What's interesting with this newsletter I've been doing, you know, I keep a tab of how many people have opened it and how many people have clicked on something. And it's interesting, if I go back to things in May from when I last checked it, there may have been 100 more people who have looked at it since we published it in May. So they're going back to look at stuff. So it's interesting. I haven't tried to keep that up because there have been too many of them, but it's interesting.
I'm switching over my emails soon to a different system so that I'll be able to get all that, because it's just because it grew and grew and grew, I never had the time to change it over to something else. But sometimes people reply directly to me, but I don't know who's clicking and who's actually opening it and all that. But then,
No, I use constant contact, and you can get that information. You feel like you could really snoop on people if you wanted, but you know, who has time for that? So.
Well, you've both done an excellent job. That's been.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
You were very helpful too.
I'll see you later.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Have a good rest of the day.
Stephen, if you're still on.
Yes.